Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm seeing a lot of sleepy faces. I think it's because of the late lunch that you've had. But I wish there were more people sitting here, because what I'm going to be talking about is perhaps one of the most important things when we talk about AI. United States, United Kingdom, Netherlands, Australia, South Africa. These countries are one of the most developed countries in the world, having very advanced democratic systems of governance in their countries. And yet, these countries represent the biggest warning signs as far as AI in governance is concerned. That's how I start my address. So in a world where AI is promising so many goods to us, so many wonderful things, we also have to look at the warnings in the recent past. Why did I take, I'll just give you two examples. Netherlands. So they used AI for some kind of risk assessment as far as child care is concerned. It led to wrongfully implicating people in fraud. So when you look at governance and you use AI for some sort of identification without any institutional oversight, then what ends up happening, that system throws errors, and that is not a failure of technology alone. That is a failure of trust. That is a failure of accountability. That is a failure of transparency. And that is a failure of governance. That's why whenever we look at AI, to implement it in different sectors of governance, at different levels of governance, we have to be very, very cognizant of the fact that constitutional responsibility cannot be outsourced. So we'll move to the next part of my address. We are looking at governance moving from digitization to intelligent governance. There are many technologies right now, but AI, of course, is going to be the prime mover. It is the one that is going to lead the show. So when we look at this kind of governance, we also need to redefine the relationship between the citizen and the state. When I say relationship between the citizen and the state essentially is supposed to look after people. When you look after people, then you cannot have systems in place that stop looking at people as people. That's why people have been talking about the human in the loop. Now, I can't stress enough that there has to be a human in the loop. Of course, when natural disasters are concerned, I mean, you can always tell when a glacier is breaking and you're going to have flooding. But what about predictive policing? In the United States, they use predictive policing model to find out which were the areas where more problems could arise. Now, the problem with this is the historical bias inherent in a society can lead to amplification of errors in the data. So, for example, in the United States, what happened? Overly policed neighborhoods, they had more data. So when you use predictive policing on such a data, then it shows up errors. And these kind of errors should not happen, because it is failure of trust. It is failure of governance as a whole. We can use AI and various technologies today. We have IoT, we have blockchain, we have remote sensing, we have a lot of technologies. So future of the world will be determined by how effectively we use convergence of technologies to further the agenda of governance across various sectors. Now, I'll talk about why we are talking about AI as not being automatically neutral. I'll give you two sentences, and I want you to think about them. Artificial intelligence. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to pay attention to this, and this is very, very important. You will carry these sentences with you when you go back, and you should. Artificial intelligence is not automatically fair just because it is artificial. So the three things: artificial intelligence, not being inherently fair just because it is artificial. We tend to think that human beings are not fair because we carry biases. But those are the very biases that we put in artificial intelligence. So that is the first thing. Second, data is not automatically objective just because it is digitized. So now these two lines, as people who are working in policy making, as people who are working in technology, as long as you remember these two lines, the data and artificial intelligence do not automatically become objective and fair just because they're artificial and digital, because who makes the artificial intelligence work? We do. If there's bias in us, if the data is corrupt, if the data is not reflecting the real reality, then artificial intelligence is going to amplify what we are doing as humans, which is bad. So if we want to increase the efficiency of artificial systems, artificial intelligence using systems, then we will need to do something about it. I'm not saying, so that's where the concept of responsible AI comes in. What is responsible AI? AI that is transparent, that we should know how AI is working to do what it is doing. Then it needs to be accountable. What do I mean by accountability? So if a system throws up something and it's somehow wrong, where is the mechanism to get redressal of that grievance? Is there a system in place that takes care of any issues that arise from a system that is based on AI? Responsible AI would also mean that citizens should have trust, not just in AI itself, but the process that is using AI. And that trust is going to translate into trust in governance itself. So AI should not become something that is so opaque, something so unknown, something so foreign to the idea of a human mind, a regular citizen, that it becomes the very barrier between the citizen and the government. We have been seeing that globally, trust is being challenged. Through the rise of misinformation, deepfakes, so many things are happening technology-wise. People are questioning, and you have seen evidence of that, people coming to the streets because what do you trust? When trust is getting eroded, in that space, if we go through this particular promise of AI only with optimism in our minds, we always have to be cognizant of the fact that while it enables us improve service delivery, it also is a double-edged sword, and it is going to completely backfire on us. Why I'm saying this again and again? Because technology adoption sometimes becomes like, I'm a bureaucrat, so I understand. I've worked in the system. Any new technology comes, oh, that's the new buzzword, AI, let's do it. And at Election Commission, so many times people approach us, why don't you use AI in elections? And as I said earlier, in many other platforms have spoken about it. Wherever high trust systems exist, high trust, people, if they don't trust elections, we will have everyone out on the roads. There will be no governments. There'll be no peaceful transition to power. Now, if I start saying, okay, let's use AI in electoral role. Let's use AI in, we can of course use AI. I'm not saying we can, but should we? That is the question. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. There is a difference. So yes, Election Commission can use AI in all aspects of electoral management. But do we do that? Should we do that? Especially in current times when elections across the globe are getting challenged. Everywhere. You see Brazil, you see United States of America, you see Europe, you see your own subcontinent. And now if we say, why? Everybody is using AI. Why should we be the caveman? We should also do something about it. But I think it's a very calibrated decision that Election Commission is taking. And if ever we decide to use AI, it would be very well thought out, because in elections, trust is not a component of the system. It's not something that is an adjunct. Trust is the system itself. So I'm going to conclude what I'm saying now with a few lines. As we move forward to a more digitized, a more intelligent, or let's say more artificially intelligent world, the real challenge is not how advanced our technologies are. The real challenge is whether the governments, the systems, adopt technology that is deeply human. In an increasingly algorithmic world, the real challenge is how human our governments remain. Thank you.